Welcome to this, the 84th annual conference of the POA. You're all looking well. I hope you got a really good week and enjoy yourselves. You notice from your programme conference we do have some guest speakers during the course of this week. They include Mick Whelan, the General Secretary of ASLEF, the Train Drivers Union, Lord Timpson, the Prisons Minister, Phil Coppell, Acting CEO, Sally Jameson, MP for Doncaster and a former prison officer. We have fraternal greetings from Carl Dalton, the Southern Ireland POA, and also Brian Goodman, Honorary Life Member. And we have Jennifer Rademacher addressing us to feedback on her review. Please don't forget the fringe meetings. They include the health and safety protocol, really useful fringe meeting for those who maybe don't know much about it or are new as trade union reps. We also have a fringe about PTSD research that's being completed into prison officers. That's a really interesting one. And we have a crime in prisons fringe meeting for those of you who are still experiencing problems getting offenders prosecuted for assaults on staff. So that be quite useful for you as well. All the details are in your programme. At the back of the hall, you may notice some familiar faces from HMPPS. We do have people from Employee Relations. There is a plan for a director to attend as well. Please make them feel welcome. Go and say hello. They are very welcome, and we appreciate the facility time we've all been given to attend conference. The nominated charity is the North West Air Ambulance Service, and the reason I chose them is because after that atrocity in Southport, it was clear to me that without their assistance there may well have been more fatalities, so let's raise as much as we can to keep them in the air. Just before I start my address, I just want to pay tribute to two dear friends and colleagues who we've sadly lost over the past 12 months. In Scotland, a retired full-time official, Andy Hogg, sadly passed away. For those who don't know Andy or had never met him, he's probably one of the nicest people you will ever meet. He always had time for everyone. He was always there to offer advice and support, and he will be sadly missed by us all. And of course, our very own Joe Simpson. What can I say about Joe? Very few people knew that he had a terminal illness. That was the character of the man. He kept going till the end. His work ethic never changed. He was always there for POA members, supporting them, doing the business of the union. He was POA through and through. He was a true friend, a true trade unionist, and I'm going to miss that cheeky smile, that infectious laugh, and that absolutely wicked sense of humour. But we do have plans, conference, to keep Joe's name alive, and I'm sure that you'll help us achieve that this week. I'd like to thank the NEC, the full-time officials, all the officers, the support staff, my amazing secretary, Nicola Hubert, for all their committed work over the past 12 months. They are always there for you. They are always there for me. Thank you to the Retired Members Committee for the good work they continue to do, ensuring that our retired colleagues are never forgotten. Most of all, conference, I want to thank each and every one of you. You are the true POA. I know what you are up against. I know how difficult things are. I know what you face. I know what the challenges are, and I know it's a thankless task because it's always your fault. You never stop, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the support you give me, and I appreciate the support you give the NEC. Wherever your workplace is, wherever you are, from me to you, thank you so much for everything that you do. Of course, we've had some people re-elected. I thank you for re-electing Jeff and Terry. You've already re-elected National Vice Chair Dave Todd, who I couldn't do without. Mick Pimblett is now the Deputy General Secretary. What an asset to the union Mick is. And of course, thank you so much for re-electing Steve Gillen as our General Secretary, because I'm telling you now, you couldn't ask for anyone better. Committed, dedicated, knowledgeable, experienced, well respected in the trade union movement. And I do believe that after TUC Congress this year, Steve will take over the presidency of the TUC for a period of 12 months. And I think that's the first time in POA history a General Secretary's ever done that. So we'll have to get some really awkward motions and raise some really awkward points of order when he takes over that presidency. So thank you for re-electing Steve. Our tag team is still going for now. We should never lose good people. And talking of good people, congratulations to Terry and Sarah, who will soon be taking up full-time official posts. Massive bonus to this union, and I wish them all the best in their future careers. And of course, after this conference, the National Chair position will be getting advertised. I will be seeking your support and nominations. I do want to get re-elected. Of course I do, Conference. I absolutely love what I do. I couldn't be happier. I'm so proud to lead such a fantastic body of people and such an amazing union. And I've got some unfinished business to do, not least of which is lowering your retirement age. So I will be seeking your support for that. Well, what a busy 12 months. Where do I start? Well, I suppose I should start with the election of a Labour government with all its hopes and aspirations it brought. Hasn't been the best of starts for them, has it? Freezing the pensioners by removing their winter fuel allowance, forcing millions more children into poverty by not relaxing the 2-child cap, betraying the waspy women, and now they target the most vulnerable amongst us with their welfare cuts, not forgetting that POA members are on PIP as well. But apparently, they keep lauding the Employment Rights Bill, which is apparently a new deal for working people. But not all working people. Oh no. You see, they said, when they come into power, they will rescind anti-trade union legislation. Unless you're a prison officer in England and Wales. Because they conveniently forget about the most long-standing, pernicious, restrictive piece of anti-trade union legislation this country has ever witnessed. The Criminal Justice and Public Order Act 1994, Section 127. They also said that you will see the biggest insourcing in a generation, unless it involves the prison service. Because they've already decided that the maintenance of prisons will be retendered and will be handed back to private companies, despite the fact that it's been a catastrophic failure. It's cost at least 3 times as much to outsource it as it would have done keeping it in-house. There is currently over £1.8 billion worth of outstanding repairs, and they think that is a successful model. Because according to the government, the Treasury have a report which proves it will be cost-effective retendering it to the private sector, but are refusing to publicise it, refusing to release it. What are they trying to hide? You see, Conference, no government is a friend of the POA, because we only get the rights that we fight for. Nothing is ever given to us. And many commentators, they complain about working conditions in China. Workers shackled to factory machines with no rights at all. Yet the POA, prison officers in England and Wales, the POA continue to be the most restricted trade union on planet Earth, with no workplace rights at all. And I've read the letters. I know some of you have written to your local MP, and I've seen the replies. The copy and paste jobs saying, oh, we couldn't possibly allow prison officers to have the right to strike back. They're too important to national security. Well, that's all well and good, but you can't have it both ways. You can't say in one breath you're that important to the security of the country that we couldn't allow you to take any form of industrial action. And then in the next breath say, but actually you're not that important that you can work till you're 68. We're a frontline, uniform law enforcement agency. We should have the same rights and privileges as others who can retire after 30 years service or age 60. You cannot have it both ways. At TUC Congress last year, when all these general secretaries from the big unions were getting up and praising the Labour government, oh, this is great, the Employment Right Bill, we're going to bring everything back, renationalise everything. When they were all getting up, I got up and said, don't forget about the prison officers. Because as far as I'm concerned, if Keir Starmer doesn't agree to rescind that piece of legislation that affects us, then he deserves to be thrown in the Brighton Sea. And this year at TUC Congress, back in Brighton, if any of you see any Labour politicians' heads bobbing up and down in the Brighton waves, guilty as charged. Well, look at our strapline. Control, not chaos, and nothing could be more apt. Dear me, are we in chaos? When the Labour government came into power, we were locking up 87,453 prisoners. And we were full. So they introduced early release schemes. And you've all seen it, the press outside prisons. Prisoners popping champagne corks on camera, thanking the Labour government because they've been released early. Some of that was staged. I know that film crews and journalists were going up to prisoners, handing them a bottle of champagne and saying, just pop the cork for us so we can film you and take photographs of you. So don't believe everything you read. 87,453. As I stand here now, the population is in excess of 88,000, and last week we had only 500 spaces left in the closed adult male estate. What a massive success that early release scheme has been. We've had Operation Early Dawn, where we've clogged up police cells and stopped them from doing their job. We're now in the midst, and we await the publication any time now of the sentence review conducted by David Bork. And we were heavily involved in that. And apparently, he visited a prison in Texas in America because they're the benchmark for prison reform and sentence reform and rehabilitation. Well, if it's good enough for sentence reform and rehabilitation, then it must be good enough for control and containment. The biggest job they're going to have is selling it to the public. Now, I haven't got a problem with giving people time off for good behaviour if they conform, if they want to change their lives. Fine, not a problem with that. But I think victims of crime have got a problem with someone getting a 10-year sentence and serving only 4. I think that's a massive problem. That's not justice served. So let's see what that review brings. And all this, of course, on the back of us still waiting for our pay award, which is going to be late yet again. Hopefully not as late as last year. And I know the government have had it in their possession for several weeks now. It's due for publication any time now. Maybe I can ask Lord Timpson when he addresses us, when's it going to happen? I would imagine sometime before recess in July, it will be announced. So hopefully not as late as last year. And then part of the headlines, of course, and then I'm looking at my friends, yes, the Wandsworth video. I mean, Wandsworth, your look's got to change sometime. My thoughts are with you. That video, and like you, those who've seen it, I just couldn't believe what I was watching. But you know what that's down to? It's down to the employer. It's down to the employer. The vetting's getting better, but it's still not good enough. Vetting needs to improve. The way we recruit staff needs to improve. Scrap this remote rubbish. Let's get it back face to face. face-to-face assessments, face-to-face interviews with a panel that grill people and put them under pressure and really test their character. The training is not fit for purpose. It doesn't prepare people for life on the landings, for the conditioning and the pressure they're going to be put under by really well-organised, experienced criminals. And I know Wandsworth are doing great work. And I know things have improved at Wandsworth, but it's still not enough. They still need the investment to modernise. We still need that training to improve, that vetting to improve, and the recruitment process to improve. But you know, if we didn't isolate each other and we didn't work in isolation on landings, I doubt corrupt staff would get an opportunity to do anything. And as far as I'm concerned, when we catch corrupt staff and we prosecute corrupt staff, the minimum sentence they should serve is 10 years, and they should serve every day and absolutely rot. We got rid of them. We've had Dartmoor temporarily closed because of a radon issue. Radon ain't new at Dartmoor. We've got evidence that proves radon was an issue back in 2007. But it's been ignored, and now look where we are. Dartmoor staff treated absolutely appallingly by the employer, displaced. Still don't know what's going to happen with Dartmoor, and it all comes down to cost. The decision is being delayed, I suspect, until after the spending review. Well, one thing for certain, we will do everything we can to secure that funding to do the necessary repairs to reopen Dartmoor. We want it to reopen. I know the employer wants it to reopen. I know the Secretary of State wants it to open. It's down to the Treasury and if it's going to be cost effective. Hopefully, the pain will not be prolonged for our colleagues from Dartmoor. And you may have noticed in the hall conference, there are a few delegates from Cookenwood walking around with big smug smiles on their faces because, yes, they've been re-rolled. They're no longer in the youth custody estate. The assaults on staff have dwindled, and they're all happy now. Well done, Cookenwood. It's nice to see you with a smile on your face. Some of you may have witnessed my evidence to the Home Affairs Select Committee in the House of Lords, where they were looking at the governance and culture within HMPPS. And the evidence I give shocked them, because I told them how it is. And you know all too well how it is. You know what's going on in your jails. You know what the issues are. You know what you face. I told them about drones. The threat of drones, a real imminent threat, not only to prisons, but to national security. We've been warning the employer for years about the threat of drones, and still nothing. We know there's technology out there which can block a drone entering our airspace. You only have to speak to the army to know that. If you want real experts on drone blocking technology, go and speak to the Ukrainian army. We know it's out there, but still it hasn't been installed. Is it a matter of cost? Is that what it's all about? Some of the excuses we get is, well, you know, technology advances. Well, keep up with technology. There really is no excuse. We should be able to secure our airspace because it's only a matter of time before a firearm is smuggled in via drone. And then what? We've already had 2 scares, 2 prisons, full lockdown searches because intelligence suggested there was a firearm that had been delivered by a drone. I was watching a video last week of a 1-person drone, which is basically the same as a helicopter. This guy on a video demonstrating this drone, he sits in it, and it just works like a helicopter. Off he flew. We know drones are out there that can carry a payload of 75 kilos. Now we've got a drone that acts as a helicopter. That's an escape attempt. So we need to sort it out. It's not as if we haven't warned them. And then, of course, I told the Home Affairs Select Committee about what you face and your members face from managers who bully, intimidate, threaten. Boy, oh boy, have we been vindicated on that score with the Rademacher report. proof of unacceptable behaviour at senior levels, something that they can no longer cover up. There has been zero accountability for too long, zero consequences for too long, and that must change. And I can guarantee you, we will force that change. There must be consequences for Band 7s and above. HMPPS must root out and kick out the tyrants because POA members have suffered enough. We will not allow those recommendations to gather dust on a shelf. We want them implemented in full, without delay. Staff must have faith and confidence in the system and should never, ever fear reprisals. No more should managers hear the grievance and decide on the outcome when they are the subject of that grievance. It's time for POA members to speak out, and we will be with you every step of the way. Conference, I know that many of you have disputes, some of you long-standing disputes, and I know it's a source of great frustration to you, as it is to us at a national level. And we're still trying to secure a fit-for-purpose disputes resolution procedure. That's ongoing work. But I just want to highlight one example of a dispute, and it's from the Isle of Man. Okay, so in the Isle of Man, the committee had fell out with their governor, which, if you'd ever met the man, is not a difficult thing to do. And he'd upset the CNR instructors. So the CNR instructors decided, okay, we've had enough of this, and all resigned en masse. Well, the volunteers, unless you're going to pay me to do it, don't have to do it. So that left the Isle of Man in a quandary, didn't it? Now they've got no instructors, can't put on refresher training, can't train new recruits. So what does the governor do? He phones the Northern Ireland Prison Service, who agreed that they would fly over CNR instructors to the Isle of Man and facilitate all this work. Until I made a phone call to our colleagues on the Northern Ireland Area Committee, who phoned me several hours later and said, that's not going to happen now, Mark. We don't want to get involved in anybody else's fight. Our directors told them it's not happening. So thank you, Northern Ireland. Unity really is our strength. Thank you on a good job. Help is appreciated. So then, what does he do then? Well, he came from the private sector, so he went back to his mates in the private sector, who facilitated CNR training with their instructors for a couple of weeks. But that's all they could manage. So he's still left in a quandary with over 90% of staff out of date, new recruits unable to finish their course because they can't get CNR trained. So we thought, well, we best try and sort this out. So me and Mick Pimblett flew over to the Isle of Man. We toured the jail. We had a discussion with the CNR instructors. And all they wanted was to have the issues resolved, to be heard, and to be respected. Nothing wrong with that conference, nothing wrong with that at all. So we held a meeting. The local committee, me, Mick, and members from the Isle of Man government. And at that meeting, the governor, he agreed to mediation. We said, look, sit down, like adults, with the CNR instructors, with the committee, sort it out. They've agreed to come back on board. He agreed to that. So we're waiting for a mediation date, and then we find out he goes behind everybody's back. And he phones NTRG, speaks to one of their directors, who agrees that POA members from NTRG will go over to the Isle of Man and facilitate all this training. Until I made a call to our employer, who quite rightly said, we're not getting involved in this. It's not our jurisdiction. And by the way, if we send NTRG over there, who's going to cover England and Wales when there's trouble? So that idea got kiboshed. So now he's forced to go through mediation. I get an email yesterday from the POA in Jersey, we've got one prison on Jersey, who tells me that he's phoned them and their governor's come to the POA in Jersey and said, what's all this about? They've phoned me, I've told them what it's all about, and now that idea is gone as well. So it just proves two things. One, you don't have to be a volunteer, and two, unity is our strength. So well done, Isle of Man, and I hope you resolve it, and, well, as for your governor, who knows? Conference, I'm sure you're all aware of the violent stats. A 10-year high. Assaults on staff are a 10-year high. They have learned absolutely nothing. I remember sitting in a meeting as we were coming out of COVID, and they were keen on expanding regimes. And I said, you'll all be sitting here in 2 years' time looking at each other, scratching your heads. How did that happen? Well, it's happened. It's happened. Highest for a decade. Because they've learned on. Look what COVID taught us. It taught us that prisoners felt safer and staff were in control. When we unlocked smaller cohorts of prisoners, we were able to forge those positive staff-prisoner relationships, meet all their needs. They weren't getting bullied, they weren't getting taxed. They were still getting what they were entitled to, still going to activities. But they didn't want that. Violence reduced, self-harm reduced, even though all the so-called experts told us it would spiral, but it never. And they say to us, well, we can't legitimize a restricted regime, a COVID regime now. I'm not asking for a COVID regime. All I'm asking for is that you unlock prisoners in smaller numbers, no full wing unlocks, so you've got more staff around. That you don't mix them, because that reduces violence. You give them all their entitlements, you still send them to activities. And I set them a challenge. I said, well, why don't you find the most violent jail in the country, and for 6 months, implement a COVID-type regime, a restricted regime, when we do all that, and then in 6 months' time, analyse the stats, come back to me and tell me I'm wrong. They don't want to do it. They've learned absolutely nothing. Deaths in custody, up. Self-harm, up. Assaults on staff, up by 13%, a new record high of 29 each and every day. Serious assaults up by 11%. In the YCS estate, it's even worse, a 25% increase on assaults on staff. Is it any wonder when 70% of those prisoners are in custody for a violent offence? And the opponents and the reform groups, they don't want you to have any protections at all. Nothing. They expect you to become a victim, to stand back and be used as a human punch bag and worse. They launch legal challenges to stop you getting the protections you so desperately need. Well, I say, better to have and not need than to need and not have. And I remember listening to an interview, Nick Ferrari, on LBC. And they had someone from the Howard League. And Nick asked him 5 times, he said, I'm a prison officer. I'm on my own on a landing. There's a 15-year-old murderer coming towards me with a knife. Why can't I spray him in the eyes with pepper spray? 5 times he asked this person. And he didn't get an answer. So in the end, Nick cut him off. Reflect on this. The perpetrator of the Southport atrocities was a 17-year-old child who entered the youth custody estate until his 18th birthday. A 15-year-old armed with a knife is just as deadly as an adult armed with a knife. So shame on those who think it's acceptable for staff to be assaulted at work and use the age of the offender as an excuse not to give you the protections you need. Shame on them all. Well, conference, we did it. We did it. Our campaign finally paid off. And we will see the rollout of POA in the youth custody estate. So be proud of your union for never backing down, for challenging and arguing and protecting you, the members, on the front line. Your safety is non-negotiable, and we should rightly celebrate this victory. And of course, many of you now are at full staffing levels. Some of you have over-recruited, but day by day, you're still short of staff. That's down to the recruitment process, to the training process, where we're setting new recruits up to fail, but it's also down to resilience. And the reason I mention resilience is because I'm in the company of the most resilient people in the service, in the NHS, wherever you work, because you're trade union officials. And you know, I remember watching the Dimbleby lecture with Sir Gareth Southgate, and he was talking about resilience and belief. And he said that failure is the only way that we learn and we get better versions of ourselves through that learning process. He said failure helps you to grow a resilience and a strength. And he reflected on that famous penalty miss in the Euros in 1996 that some of you may remember. I certainly do. And he said the pain of that still haunts him to this day, and it probably always will. But he said it was a watershed moment in his life, and it forced him to accept that failure, dig deep, and it revealed to him an inner belief and a resilience that he never knew he had. And the reason I'm saying that is because we can't win them all. And you may be disappointed. You may be beating yourself up because someone's just lost a job, because a decision's gone against you. But you're still here. You're still chipping away. We learn from it. We get better. We provide better evidence. We give up better arguments. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this conference, it's this. Believe in yourselves like I believe in you. I'm going to talk about resilient staff. I've never met such a resilient group of staff as I met at HMP Frankland after that absolutely atrocious attack on them by a terrorist prisoner, which came so close to a tragedy, and we wish our colleagues a speedy recovery. And on the back of that attack, it was blatantly obvious to me that you really do not have the protections that you need in your workplace. And credit to the government. They have initiated a rapid review, and it is a rapid review. We're heavily involved in it, in those discussions. It will be completed shortly after conference with recommendations. We've asked for stab-proof vests in high-risk areas. What do we mean by high-risk areas? We're looking at separation centres, close supervision centres, and every segregation unit, because they are the high-risk areas. We want slash-proof vests rolling out to the rest of the estate where you think you need it because of the threat you face and the violence levels in your establishments. But we need your help. We need you to provide us with the evidence, because the employer loves evidence and statistics. Now, you might need slash-proof vests in the open estate. I don't know. You tell me. You might need them in the female estate, even though violence in the female estate is rocketing. I don't know. You tell me. Give me the evidence so I can go and argue and get you this stuff. But what doesn't help is when the employer goes round and visits jails to talk about stab-proof and slash-proof vests and holds focus groups. What doesn't help is when the members say, well, even if you issued me it, I wouldn't wear it. We don't need it. We don't want it. That doesn't help us. So if you want all this equipment because you need it, then you need to tell us. And if you don't want it, bring it here and we'll change our policy. But if I can get you that equipment to protect you in the workplace, then I'll do everything I can to do it. And that's what we're trying to do now. Of course, we've already asked for the tactical use of tasers, especially in the high security state. They have to be our priority at the moment. Because I'm absolutely convinced, that if taser would have been available locally to deploy during that incident, that threat would have been neutralised a lot quicker, and maybe there wouldn't have been as much serious injury as there was. And you may have heard me talk about Supermax. Well, as I said before, if you're going to use the American model for reform, then let's use it for control and containment. Because whether you like it or not, whether you want to hear it or not, we are dealing with a handful, and it is a handful of prisoners whose ideology will never, ever change. You can't reform them. You can't rehabilitate them. Their sole purpose is to carry out atrocities in prison and target prison staff. And my biggest fear is that one of our colleagues will get murdered on duty if we don't clamp down on them. The appeasement has got to stop. Giving prisoners a break because they threaten to smash up. Appeasement. Allowing prisoners loads of kit in the cell. Appeasement. Undermining your decisions on the landings. Appeasement. It's got to stop. What do we mean by Supermax? Separation centres should be run like Supermax. You enter the unit. You're immediately issued with a prison issue uniform. I don't care what it looks like. It can be a bright pink boiler suit for all I care. Every time you're unlocked, you're cuffed and you're escorted by 3 staff. You don't have anything in your cell that you can fashion into a weapon. You get your basic entitlements. If you want to use the gym, there's a rowing machine on the landings, crack on. Why would we want to give people anything more when they're trying to murder us? Control and contain them based on the American model. It's got to happen, and it's got to happen soon, and we've got to have a government with the will and the bottle to do it. And while I'm talking about Franklin delegates, please take this back to your members. Everybody in this hall is with you. The entire trade union movement is with you. The general public are with you, and if there's anything you need, just say. We wish our colleagues a speedy recovery, and I want to commend Franklin for all the work they're doing at this fraught time for their members. Please show your appreciation for the Franklin Committee. Conference, we have a fringe about the health and safety protocol, and it's been used a few times this year. Recently at Whitemore, they managed to resolve their issues. And at Liverpool, where staff, individuals who used it, got threatened with court action and disciplinary action. And the employer, every time it's being used, the employer says to us, it's your members that are failing to use it correctly and failing to adhere to it. What a load of rubbish. I'm afraid it's their managers that are failing to adhere to it and use it correctly, because the POA are the only ones who educate and put on training for their members on the health and safety protocol. So how does that work? We're getting the blame for everything. And it's the same old. Every time it's used, government legal department, pre-action protocol letter. Yes, this government, like the last, is determined to take the POA to court, instead of allowing local officials with the support of the NEC to sort it out. No, let's just run them into court. And the biggest misinterpretation by our employer when it comes to the protocol is this. They think that when you, as an individual, invoke that protocol, that you should carry on working the exact same practice that forced you to invoke it in the first place. What an absolutely ridiculous way to think. We want you to carry on working that practice that you feel is that unsafe that it forced you to invoke the protocol in the first place. Imagine your governors are in charge of a zoo, and we have a health and safety protocol at the zoo, and your job is to feed the lions. Okay? The governor comes along one day and says, I've got a new working practice to feed the lions. It's dead efficient, save time, and it's the safest you'll ever know. And you say, what's that, governor? And he says, well, what I want you to do is I want you to go into lion's den, and I want you to feed the lion hand to mouth. And you say, well, I don't think that's safe, governor. Not happy with that. He says, well, I'll have to order it if you don't do it. So you do it, and the next day you see the governor and you say, excuse me, governor, excuse me, I'm invoking the health and safety protocol as an individual because I don't think that work and practice that you wanted me to do is safe. And he says, what do you mean you don't think it's safe? And you say, well, look, governor, bit my hand off. Bit my hand off, governor, it's not safe. Would you expect to continue with that unsafe work and practice until your local POA committee have sat down with the management and resolved it? It's an absolutely ridiculous way to think, but that's the way your employer interprets the health and safety protocol. Ridiculous. I tell you what, it's a good job your governors aren't in charge of the zoo, isn't it? But I have to ask, why are you going the extra mile for an employer that clearly doesn't care about your safety? Why are you worrying if voluntary tasks can't be covered? Because if they were that vital, you'd be getting paid for them. And just because your governor thinks the regime is safe doesn't actually mean it is. But one thing we've learned is that when POA members speak out, the government and the employer is forced to act. When POA members stand up, the government is forced to listen to us, to act upon what we are saying. So I'm saying to you, be bold, be brave, be honest to yourself and true to your members. Never back down, never give up, and remember, you only win the rights that you fight for. And without a fight, you will have no rights. We are stronger together. We are safer together. We will stand together and we will win together. Unity is our strength. Solidarity to you all. Thank you.